If you're a fan of monocles, scarves, and leaf springs, have I got the RC for you. Welcome back to the Skilled Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. Today we're taking a first look at the new Traxxas Snap-On Socket Wrench Special. And here it is. This weirdo RC should really be on my new show. But I really felt like this deserved a video all its own because this is a very unique RC car. This is the newest thing from Traxxas, and the only way to get it is through your Snap-on dealer or enterprising people on eBay. But I wouldn't recommend that. They're way overcharging for this. This is a brand new 2S brushless on the BL2S system car. It is an old, what do they call it? What is this thing called? This is an old-fashioned sprint car replica. And this was an actual Snap-on vehicle back in the 1920s. And this is what race cars looked like back then. They weren't small. And this is no different. This is a fairly large RC car. It's got a big wheelbase. It's just over 13 inches. No way. Yeah, it's like a 13.25-inch wheelbase. It is not small. It's a big car, and it's quite imposing, as you can see. These plastic wire wheels with knockoff hubs are very, very cool. There's lots of chrome. There's lots of black. It is Lexan, but I'm not doing any modifying to that, so that shouldn't be a problem. But lots of details. It's a detail-rich replica car. And if you look at the box, there's a bunch of history about the Snap-on Socket Wrench Special and where this came from and what the inspiration was. But I think the most unique part of it is that this is an entirely new platform for Traxxas. And while Snap-on does have the exclusive rights of this vehicle for now, who knows what the future holds, I hope that we will see other models come out on this platform using this new old technology. Now, what can we say? Well, it is very much a 1920s roadster sprint car. This would be a race car, I guess. There would be a racing series all around these cars. There's a lot about this car that is kind of centered on real-world technology. It does have replica leaf springs. They're not real functional leaf springs, which is unfortunate, but it is still cool that Traxxas made a nod to the actual thing. There are these other things here. This is the Andre Hartford shock absorber. And I guess it is sort of an adjustable shock absorber. As you can see, it does control the amount of up and down kind of shock motion. There is no coilover style, but there is a coiled wire in there. And obviously it's sort of like a friction, sort of tension setup. I can't really describe it. It's a technology that I wasn't really familiar with, but you can probably Google it if you want to know more about it. There is like, it's sort of a progressive rate. There is sort of a position where it sort of like sags, so it sort of sits in its natural place, but there's still down travel and still up travel as well, which is pretty interesting. Very smooth setup, if I'm honest. They have that setup in the front. They also have that setup in the rear, as you can see there as well. But there are two sets on either side instead of just one set up front. It is a solid axle rear with a differential, so you can see that the tires are independent of each other and they will spin. And there's also a lot of trailing arms. There's a lot of trailing arms, as you can see. Very long trailing arm setup, front and rear. Steering is behind the axle. This is a solid sort of front axle. These are independent, and there is no gearing up front. It is a two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive car. And it looks fantastic. I have to say, it's probably one of the best-looking Traxxas vehicles I've ever seen, and they've done some pretty good ones in their day, but this one is very unique. I can't say that I've ever seen a sprint car done before, so it's really cool to see them take a risk and do something a little bit outside of the box. And of course, because this is a limited edition through Snap-on, it's a pretty uncalculated risk. It's hard to say. I mean, they must have known there would be a market and that Snap-on dealers would be able to sell these, because you can't really buy them as, you know, a public consumer. There is no option to buy this on the Traxxas store. But because this is an entirely new platform, you have to imagine that they're going to make other things out of this and make this available to all of us regular people. The only reason I got this was a friend of mine bought one through his Snap-on dealer and then sold it to me. It's as simple as that. What else can we say about it? Mechanically, the steering is all done through a very long bell crank style system. You can see it all is right here, and that controls the steering. There is a good amount of steering for sure. Yeah, the front tires are of a much more hard compound than the rear tires, obviously to give you grip. And most of the weight, as you can see, is over the rear end. And that's where you would want it on a two-wheel drive car, so you get that actual grip. Now, let's get this very detailed body off. You see there's all kinds of things going on here. Carburetors, exhaust ports. This is a fuel prime pump, I believe. There's even a gas cap up here on the back. There is a detailed steering wheel and interior. The seat is hard plastic, not Lexan, which is pretty cool. Nice big chrome grille with a bunch of dials and stuff on the front here. And then a nice big muffler and exhaust port on the side here. The body is a clip version, so it clips on from the bottom. You can see there are two sets of clips there, one there, and then one in the front. And then the body pops off quite easily. There's not much to it except for the clip assembly on the inside and some things to mount all the other bits and pieces that are on the outside. The inside of this is where it gets very interesting. This is fairly different for Traxxas. This is fairly different for anybody, if I'm honest. Let's see if we can zoom out a little bit more. There we go. And now you can see that this is a pretty non-traditional layout, mostly because the motor is mounted vertically at the back of the chassis here. Let's flip it around so you get a better look at that. That's the motor standing up on its end. And then the pinion and spur gear are all here at the top. Seems like a weird place for it. Why didn't they put it the other way? Who knows? Why didn't they even lay it down flat? Regardless, there is a drive shaft that comes off of the spur, which goes into the actual diff of that rear axle. And you can see there's quite a large set of gears inside there. And that's what powers this whole thing. What a strange setup. It is the BL2S system, so you've got brushless 2S power here, 2075 waterproof servo, and then your receiver is right up front here. Now, to get the battery in and out, let's see, look, I haven't even taken the elastic band off of the Traxxas connector here. And then this looks to be the battery tray. How do we get into that? Another clip, that comes off. And then your battery gets mounted longitudinally through the back here. So again, more weight over the rear axle, or at least towards the rear of the car, to keep all that power down. These tires are quite skinny, and having all that weight over the rear is definitely going to help aid in traction. Pretty unique system and a pretty unique chassis. Not something I can say I've ever seen before, but it is definitely very cool. One other interesting note, these clips here on the battery tray do look as if they're designed to hold the actual TRX connector in place. It almost seems like it was designed for that, as you can see. Pretty easy to hold that in place there, and then you've got a nice solid place to mount your battery connectors. I do love the Traxxas clip system. That does make things wildly easy. It's so great. Do you think that we're going to see a Traxxas specific model of this sprint car? Is that something that you think Traxxas is going to do, or do you think it's going to stay a Snap-on exclusive? We know the TRX-6 Ultimate Hauler started as a Snap-on exclusive model, and about a year, maybe almost two later, we saw Traxxas come out with their own version of it for the general public. So that could be a good indicator of where this is going to go. I honestly think that this is one of the weirdest RC cars in a very long time. There's a lot of weird technology going on here. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I like weird stuff. I have a whole series about it. But I think there's just something very special about this, and it really makes me hesitate actually driving it. I almost think I'm going to wait until Traxxas comes out with their own version, assuming they do, and I'll run that one. This one may have to stay shelf queen. In terms of the scale of this vehicle, I found it to be close to about 1/8 scale. So a 9-inch man like Mr. Jean-Luc Picard here seems to be a pretty decent fit. Of course, I don't think he will fit without some surgery. Maybe he will, though. Hang on. Let me see if we can get him in here. I may have to take the steering wheel off, so bear with me for a moment. There you go. That's actually not too shabby. In order to get him to sit in there properly, I would probably need to remove his feet. They are sort of interfering with the ESC location, but that's not too bad. That actually looks pretty good. I will, if I were to use him as a full-time driver, I would probably cut him off at the knees in order to make him fit properly, because his legs are sort of interfering with the ESC. I can't quite snap it down without him moving around a little bit. But that looks pretty close, and there are photos on the back of the box that show it to be about this size. In fact, he might be a little tiny bit small for this car, but it's generally pretty good. I'd say that looks not too shabby. So there you go. That's a first look at the new Traxxas Snap-On Socket Wrench Special. What a cool vehicle. If this is something that you're going to be getting, put a comment down below. You know I love reading through your feedback, and I try to answer as many of those comments as I can. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you like seeing things that aren't very common, hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so you get updates anytime there's a new video from the Scale Builders Guild. I should run it, but I'm also very nervous about doing that. Maybe in another video. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.